60 BC, 3835 AM. Approximate date for when Diodorus Siculus visited Giza and studied the Great Pyramid. This historian wrote that the structure was covered in white casing blocks that were, quote, entire and without the least decay, unquote. He wrote that the earth could not be too old or that mankind could not have been on earth for very long, perplexing as to why the Theban and Trojan Wars, 1244 to 1229 BC, seemed to be the extent of Greek history and knowledge of the past. It is to be noted that the reason why there appeared no historical knowledge possessed by ancient Greeks is because the ancient Greeks were in fact early migrating Israelites from the Ionian and Danaan migrations. Within a century and a half of the appearance of these migrants occurred the Theban War, 1244 BC. Within a century and a half of the appearance of these migrants occurred the Theban War, 1244 BC, and the Trojan War, 1239 to 1229 BC. In this year, the first triumvirate of Rome was established between Pompey, Marcus Crassus, and Julius Caesar. It would last until 53 BC. 1. The Great Pyramid, its divine message. 2. Diodorus. 59 BC, 3836 AM. Titius Livy was born. He died in AD 17. A Roman historian who composed 142 books from source materials as old as Rome itself. His masterpiece of Rome's early history is still studied today. 58 BC, 3837 AM. Roman general Julius Caesar conquers Gaul, France, gaining immediate fame throughout the Roman Empire. Roman historian Strabo, born in this year, died AD 25. 55 BC, 3840 AM. Julius Caesar of Rome invades Britain with thousands of troops in the first recorded transatlantic naval invasion in Roman history, exactly 2,000 years before the United States conducted the most extensive transatlantic naval invasion in world history in 1944 AD, with Operation Overlord storming the beaches of Normandy, Gaul, where Caesar took off from invading Britain. After crossing the English Channel, Caesar's forces were opposed by Cassibelanus of Britain with 4,000 troops and war chariots that repelled the Romans. So fierce was the British resistance that in 3 weeks the Romans had only advanced 7 miles, and the Romans were forced to retreat. Caesar did not discover barbarians, but a land full of civilized people rich in agriculture, livestock, and thickly populated. Caesar wrote his famous Gallic War, describing that the Celts of Gaul were constantly at war with the Germans north of the Rhine. Interestingly, this would soon be the fate of Britain, for in about 5 centuries the German families of the Saxons, Jutes, and Angles would be invading the Isles. The British referred to themselves as the Cymri or Cimbri, which we have already found derived from the Cimeri, Scythians of old. The designation of British denoted their Hebrew origin. Brith, covenant, and ish, man, or Brithish, being British, covenant man. This year was 2160 before Armageddon, and 5184 of Anunnaki chronology. It was also 2760 Anno Pyramid, and 1584 years after 1639 BC, when Manasseh and Ephraim were adopted into the family of Israel. This is remarkable because Manasseh and Ephraim are the future prophetic Israelite-descended empires of Great Britain and the United States. This year was 1332 years, 666 plus 666, after 1387 BC, when the kingdom of the Chittim in Italia invaded Britannia, Britain, clearly a repeat in history. This was also the 1200th year of the Danaan dynasty of Mycenae, founded in 1255 BC, the Danaan having sailed away from the Peloponnesus in fleets after the collapse of the dynasty, as the Dorians invaded, many making their way to Britain. This was also the 690th year since the Israelites were deported into Assyria in 745 BC, and 666 years after the last of the 10 tribes were deported in 721 BC. 1. Tracing our ancestors. 2. St. Paul in Britain. 3. A History of Civilization, Volume 1. 5. The Bible's Fraud. 54 BC, 3841 AM. Julius Caesar, smarting from his inability to conquer Britain the year before, invades Britain again with even more troops and 1,000 ships. His campaign lasted from May 10th to September the 10th. He had more success this time, however. The Britons were mighty and fought back valiantly until the campaign was a stalemate. Caesar was entertained by the Celtic leader Cassibelanus, but no British nobles were taken captive, and when Caesar left Britain he left no Romans behind. Though a draw, the egoistic Caesar recorded it as a victory. On the far eastern end of the Roman Empire, the Roman general Marcus Crassus also sought to expand the Roman territory, and like Caesar, he too found that Rome had a limit. He fought against the Parthians and found them to be organised and undefeatable. Iron that looked spongy rained from the sky over Lucania, and the people interpreted this to be a bad omen for their faraway soldiers, for many Lucanians were serving under Marcus Crassus. This is the approximate date for the death of Lucretius Carus, who had written On the Nature of the Universe, a poem of over 7,400 lines focused on demonstrating that the entire universe is composed of atoms. Lucretius remarked that if the world is truly old, then why does the sum of Greek history span back only to the Theban and Trojan wars? This was also a question posed by Diodorus Siculus, c. 60 BC. Lucretius also wrote of the Great Flood, when races of men were overwhelmed, declaring that the entire history of the world was one of earthquakes that caused cities with their citizens to sink to the bottom of the seas. Lucretius' most incredible statement was that some unknown body, not the moon, passes over the surface of the sun and darkens the earth at a fixed time. Evidently, Lucretius had available to him historic records and accounts of Phoenix and Nibiru, as did Pliny, Aristarchus, Thales, and Archaix. 1. Tracing our ancestors. 2. Pliny, Natural History, Universe and the World. 3. Lucretius on the Nature of the Universe, Book 5.